Reddit stories from r/AskReddit. Cops of Reddit, what was the funniest thing you've seen someone do because they noticed you? My nephew when he was like 7 used to always drop to his shoes and quickly tie them whenever he saw me. Apparently my sister-in-law told him that it's illegal to have your shoes untied. I've never agreed with parents telling their kids these lies to control their behavior because they eventually catch on, and then when you give them a real legit warning they won't take you seriously. That can be true especially in abusive homes. But a well-raised child becomes a well-adapted adult who can go on to laugh about those types of minor things. For a kid the age of learning how to tie their shoes, sometimes the logic of so you don't trip or because we spent money on your shoes just goes over their head. I was at a traffic light, waiting to cross, and I saw this lady with her young son across the street. The kid was running around yelling and generally not listening to his mom. As I crossed the street I heard the mother say, "If you don't behave I'll ask the police uncle." Uncle? Lady, I'm like 23. To catch you. Look. He's here already. Kid stops dead in his tracks, looks at me, wordlessly bursts into tears and starts hugging his mother's leg. Mother gives me an apologetic smile. I'm trying not to giggle as I walk on. This is a good cop, good mom, and paranoid kid. My kid was acting up and we heard police sirens outside, so I jokingly said that they were going to come put him in kid jail. My son got so scared and wouldn't let us go, wouldn't stop crying. I don't tell that joke anymore. I don't think it's nice to mess with your kid's head like that, and I also don't want him to be scared of the police. I figured he'd know I was joking but was definitely wrong. I'm not an officer, but one lovely summer day in downtown Seattle, my children and me were wandering around at Pike Place Market, riding the monorail, etc. They were roughly 4 and 5 at the time. A street artist had made my daughter a balloon crown with a big flower poking out the top. She was wearing it on her head when we passed by an alley and it blew off into the street. It exploded piece by piece, with each piece echoing down the street like a gunshot. 2 street officers and 2 mounted officers on horses were there in the blink of an eye. They saw the balloon parts, and realized what had happened. My daughter was crying, the officers were shaken but laughing, and this, being Seattle, latte land, prompted one officer to say that we owed them all a coffee. My daughter was sad to lose her hat, but the mounted officers let my children pet the horses, so everything worked out fine. I haven't ever seen mounted officers in Seattle and now I'm upset lol. My dad and I both work for the same PD, this is his story not mine. The shift before he had a guy detained for misdemeanor warrants or something. Some junkie comes walking down the road, sees the flashing lights and a cop next to a open back door. He empties his pockets dumping a pipe, needles, and 5 grams of meth on the hood of his patrol car. He then spreads his legs and puts his hands on the car. My dad was shocked, let the other guy in the back go and took in the guy who just handed over his meth. Apparently not sleeping for 3 days makes you paranoid. Easiest arrest he ever made. Sounds similar to my sister. They were trying to find someone because I think they stole something. Anyways, there were many cars and even a helicopter out looking for her. They drive past her, reverse back and get out of the car. The lady they tried to catch stopped, turned around, muttered, "Oh okay," to themselves and literally sat in the back seat before anyone said anything. That is how my sister caught someone they had been on in the run for 30 meters on her birthday lol. One time we had a shirtless man enter the lobby of the jail yelling he was a DEA agent. We was demanding that we release 2 inmates to him, his girlfriend and friend. After he was in cuffs it turned out the 2 people he was after had already been released the day before. When we ran his name, he had a felony warrant for impersonating a peace officer. Smiley face. Never run the same con twice. Maybe too late, but one day I was headed to my station at the end of shift, meaning I stare straight ahead and avoid getting any paperwork to make me stay late. I happened to be behind the same car for maybe 2 miles on the same road. We're sitting at a red light and out of nowhere this dude runs it. Everyone at the intersection looks at me, so of course I stop the dude. Make contact and he can barely hand me his license, he's shaking so bad from being nervous. Ask why he's so scared and he says he saw me behind him and he's on diversion. For running a red light. Also ends up having weed in the car. Where I work it is illegal to walk around in public with open liquor. At the time I was on patrol and driving a Crown Vic. As I was going down the street a guy must have thought I was a taxi cab and he tried hailing me with an open can of beer. Once he realized I was a police officer, he looked just like Ralphie from A Christmas Story. Oh foo uddddggg. I was laughing so hard I didn't have the heart to give him a ticket. Caught some drunk urinating in an alleyway in the town center. He saw me and scuttled away whilst still pissing, leaving a lovely wavy trail behind him. Did you follow the trail? Like a shitty version of the yellow brick road? I did not. This question reminds me of an experience I had as a kid. My friend, who was black, probably plays a role into how things panned out, was interested in becoming a DJ, so he invested a lot of money into amps, turntables, subwoofers, etc. He used the same equipment in his car as he did with his turntables, and just powered them off a 12V power supply when using them outside his car. Well, we're sitting in his backyard, and he's messing around with the turntables, when a cop car just pulls up all slow. The backyard was separated from the alley by just a chain-link fence. The cop in a suspicious voice says, "Hey, do you have a receipt for all that equipment?" And without missing a beat my friend claps back with, "Do you have a receipt for those shoes you're wearing?" And the cop just kind of nods as if to say, "Fair enough," and gets back in the car and leaves. Plot twist, the cop stole those shoes. Plot twist, the Fryan stole all those items, and he was selling them on eBay. He recognized the pair of shoes as ones he stole. One time at night I saw some teens at a scenic overlook smoking a joint. I quietly walked up behind them and was literally standing 3 feet above them. I waited until one of them took a big drag and then turned on my flashlight. Kid just died inside as he looked at me and stated, "Oh shit," while the smoke came out. It was hilarious to me. Laughed even harder while I took him to jail. Just kidding, I let them go. You sound like the cops from my hometown. The town is famous for weed, but there were never weed arrests. The cops would show up, scare the crap out of kids smoking in the woods, maybe joke around with them and then just let them go with a warning. Cops in my hometown mostly worked search and rescue for lost, injured hikers. They town didn't care what locals did as long as no one got hurt. Maybe the rates of people being lost were so high, because they themselves were high. Dude. I love the hurried reach for a seatbelt. Honestly, people still don't wear them? What the hell are they thinking? Right? I've seen enough videos of people hurtling through their windshield and getting smeared across the concrete into a red mush of bone, flesh and blood, to know that it's not a good idea. A lot of people suddenly change their minds about what direction they're turning. Any direction the cop is turning, I'm suddenly compelled to turn the opposite way, even if it's the complete opposite direction I need to go. You'd think I was trafficking a ton of coke or something. Nope, just deathly afraid of police even if I'm doing literally nothing wrong. Yup. I've had enough bad interactions with cops that I actively avoid them if I can. I frequent a tavern in my city. A cop stops by every now and then for dinner to go and chills in his squad car for a couple minutes waiting for staff to walk the food out since he doesn't want to make patrons nervous. I was out smoking and there he is patiently waiting out back. Another patron walks out and stops dead in his tracks when he sees the idling cop car. He stares for a couple seconds, spins around and walks back inside. Had me dying for a minute. I'm sure the cop following me enjoyed this. I was driving through small-town Washington, which had a reputation for pulling over people for doing 1 mile per hour over. I saw a cop behind me, so I was checking my speed and ran a stop sign. Lights go on, my body turned to jello and I started melting to the floor. He started stopping but suddenly pulled away and followed 5 other cars that were ahead, lights and sirens blazing. If he saw the dead look on my face, I'm sure he would be laughing. So, how did you scrape off your melted body off the car floor? Haha, had to pull over first. I was driving without a seat belt. Came towards a robot and a Metro police vehicle passed and the cop looked at me, oncoming lane. And I shyly put my seatbelt on. The driver next to me thought it was pretty funny because when I looked over he was pulling his seatbelt and laughing at me. Greater than came across a robot. What? Traffic lights? In South Africa we call it robots. Green, yellow, red. Was speeding, saw a cop pull out a few cars behind me and knew he was coming for me, so I pulled down a side road into a suburb. He turned down the same road, so I pulled into someone's driveway, no idea whose house it was. Seen the cop drive down the road really slow looking at my car, so I got out of the car and acted like I was going into the house, waved at the cop and he kept on driving. Luckily no one was home, so I got back in my car, waited until the coast was clear and got TF out of there. Not a cop, but I once saw a show where police were everywhere looking for a guy who'd run for it. Anyway, two cops are cruising down this street, and as they pass this man they think he looks familiar, so start slowing down and called out to him. Instantly the guy bolted, so they chased him down, and while they're arresting him he's screaming they've got the wrong man and he's allergic to handcuffs, metal. Anyway, turns out he was the wrong guy and he was allergic to metal, he's just terrified of police, haha. True story, by the way. Not my story, my uncle's. Some dudes were pissing in a fountain, God knows why, and my dad, who was on patrol duty that dat, happened to see them. They ran away. I know, not weird yet, right? Well, thing is they didn't pull up their pants, so they were running, dongs out, pants at their ankles. But then they tripped and fell not far from the fountain. My uncle said he couldn't stop laughing. Really wish I could have seen. Thanks for watching. Be sure to subscribe for more Reddit stories like this.